predict whether something's going to sink or float without using gravity within the buoyancy formula.
He'll use his ass to sink it in with his ass. There you go.
Are you asking to prove something without the thing that proves it?
Essentially, because the claim was made earlier that something along the lines that mathematics is based on a flat Earth or some bullshit.
How do you prove something that you can't prove? What the fuck?
Right. So what I'm saying is, because they claim density and buoyancy, I'm looking for how they would accurately predict something when you remove one of the variables in the formula.
Yeah, that question is silly.
It's accurate. It's accurate to someone who denies gravity.
Right. So the question would be, you have to use gravity would be the answer, and then if he says that it's wrong, then it would be on him or her to prove that you can do it without it, and then show that mathematics in work, in practice, in the real world. I mean, at least that's what I think. How it should be.
We've skipped many steps because Merle does deny gravity, so we don't have to go down that road. We can skip that and say, okay, we know buoyancy is a thing. Remove gravity from the formula. Now, can you make accurate predictions?
Yeah, so it's just a tactic from a flat earther to make them feel right, because they know the answer is you can't, and then he's like, there, blah, blah, blah.
You can't answer for them, though. They have to be the ones to answer it.
How the fuck do they do that?
Yeah, they can't.
Right.
That's what I was
so the silence from a flat earther when presented that question answers the question, and then I'm actually interested if someone makes an attempt to explain. I'm interested in that part, but I don't suspect there would be any answer, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I was saying a little bit earlier. I was like, I've yet to see a flat earther throw some numbers at me and some equations at me. You know, it never happens. They always talk in circles with no evidence. But they talk about evidence. They discredit evidence, and they say they have evidence. They say it's so clear, and yet, I don't get it.
Same here. It's too early, mate.
Well, whoever's asking it, who's awake, like when you start to look at what you can practically demonstrate about the claim, you realize you can't.
So
then
Merle,
you've got to ask yourself, why?
No, don't tell me what I can and can't do or what I would think in certain situations. That's silly.
Okay, well, practically demonstrate a solar system.
Real quick, Merle, because I've asked this a few times, I haven't gotten an answer. And Merle, to you, how would you be able to accurately predict whether something sinks or floats without using gravity within the buoyancy formula? How would you do it?
I'd bring all the formulas off the table and start from scratch.
Okay, so I'm asking you right now. We have 100 objects of varying surface areas, varying densities, varying material. We have 100 of them. Now we're gonna see whether they sink or float, but we're also gonna make predictions. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna use the buoyancy formula with gravity, and I'm gonna take those 100 objects and make my predictions using that. So now, on your side of it, what are you going to do with those 100 objects? How would you?
Well, again, I'd ask, how would you practically demonstrate a solar system?
Right.
The
so
formula,
we can get to that.
You know that you can just replace G with 1 and completely eliminate the variable. And then compare objects within the formula, and it would still determine which one sinks or floats.
I don't think that's accurate.
On paper it would be, however in practice it would not be. The results would be different than the on paper equations. However, he is right, because if gravity was 1 instead of what it is, it would still work out.
Yeah.
However, we live on Earth where gravity is not 1.
A better question would be, can you predict how much, like for example, how much weight can a boat support that displaces this much water, right? That'd be a better question.
Well, no, he asked a very simple question. He gave an example of how he would go about figuring out the results and what experiment. This is how he would do it, and then he asked Good Dude to explain how he would get it done, and then Good Dude's response was something about the solar system. So I'd like to backtrack just a little bit and get to the bottom of the answer that Good Dude was the question that Good Dude was asked.
Oh,
Is that Merle? Is that
Why
Merle?
are you? Why are you talking about weight?
I'm not talking about weight.
No, no. The who said about the how much weight a boat can have? I mean, you have
the
gravity
displacement?
and the weight. Yeah,
It's just
there's
a way to
gravity.
divert conversations whenever a flat earther
Yeah.
can't answer a question. They just completely derail the conversation to weight and solar system nonsense.
Right. So I'm still waiting for Merle. I know we kind of got off track for a second, but I'm still waiting for Merle. How I've explained how I would do it to make predictions, and then obviously we will make the test. Throw these materials in water, and we'll see what happens to confirm our predictions. But I'm seeing how you would come to arrive at your predictions.
Yeah, I just told you, but you've avoided 2 of my questions. So until you answer my 2 questions, I don't think it's fair.
So your solar system thing was asked afterwards, and I said we can't address that. That's fine. I'm not trying to avoid that question. The other one, you made an assertion about how I assume things or beg the question based on the Earth, and I told you I don't make assumptions, and I gave you evidence in the chat. Whether you looked at it or not is not my problem, but I gave you my evidence rather than assumptions. So I think I addressed your concerns.
But what I realize is I'm a human being on the Earth like you, and I know because I'm intellectually honest that to get to the heliocentric aspect, I have to beg the question that it's even real in the first place. I know that.
We're
Okay,
spinning the
but you
globe.
do that. I don't do that. So don't put words in my mouth, and I won't put words in yours. That's what you do, as you just said. I don't do that.
That's the beginning. That's the beginning. You can't get to the next step until you realize the first step.
No, we
But
could dump
Merle,
everything
Merle,
to make no assumptions.
we're still on the globe. We're not in the solar system yet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So why are you asking about the solar system?
So you're on a planet, in a solar system, in a universe, and I say, are you?
Great question.
We're starting with the planet,
Yeah, we can get to that,
and we can go to the solar system.
but I feel like you're avoiding my question completely.
And I know why you're avoiding mine.
I feel like I've answered it twice and provided evidence to take away from that assumption.
Your question doesn't bring anyone in this room closer to whether the Earth is a globe.
What was the question?
So basically, the question comes down to we're on a topic about formulas and blah blah blah. I asked the question: how would Merle, as a flat earther who denies gravity as we know it, make predictions on 100 different objects, whether they'll sink or float in water? How would he come to those predictions if not using gravity within the buoyancy formula?
And what was the answer so far? If there was
Still
He's
waiting.
tippy-toeing around it. He's tippy-toeing around it. What is it, Good Dude?
So I've explained my side where I would use the buoyancy formula with gravity included to make predictions based on those 100 objects. So I'm still waiting for the flat earth side that removes gravity, how they would make accurate predictions.
He's not gonna answer. He's gonna obfuscate and then go mental.
I agree. I was just trying to pin him in a corner about it.
Punching stuff in the background.
I think he's away from the mic right now.
Load washing on, is that what you're saying?
No, to put it on.
Oh, he's hot mic.
Merle, you have a hot mic. Someone mute him.
Oh, okay, because I could hang them up for you too.
Oh, there's quite a lot.
I hope they don't fall due to gravity.
Don't worry.
Chemo, do your job. Mute him.
So it's not a
Chemo will mute the wrong person who's not even talking, but he won't mute Merle hot micing talking to his mom. It's pretty funny.
Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm good, why?
Oh, and I thought you might have wanted me to.
Yeah.
There we go. Good. He's a bit of a cunt, but I don't want to hear him talk to his someone above.
I guess until he's
Personally.
back, does anyone else on the flat side have an answer?
I think they can't even have an answer because they can't invoke weight or anything.
Yep, they can't. And it's easy. Coming up with formulas is not that hard. You know what I'm saying? You come up with an observation, and you're like, how does this make sense? And then you just derive some equations from that. Something I can't do. I'm not smart enough to do that. I'm not saying that. But there's a lot of flat earthers out there, and they should be able to come up with some of these models on paper and submit them to, scientifically backed companies to get DOI numbers. It just doesn't happen, though. Why is that?
Welcome back.
You know,
I think
Thanks. I mean, whoever asked that question, how do you know what Flat Earth knows?
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
we
So I'm
don't.
not
That's
putting
why
words
we're
in your
asking
mouth.
flat earthers what they think.
Right. I'm not straw manning. I'm not making any assumptions about what you think. I'm asking you because I've given my side. So we're both side by side. There's 100 objects in front of us, and you're going to do what you're going to do, and I'm going to use the buoyancy formula with gravity, and I'm going to make my predictions. But I'm interested in how you would come to conclusions for your predictions. I'm interested. I'm asking you.
I'd do it exactly the same way you'd do it. I just wouldn't have a pre-installed bias or equation at the offset. I'd begin on a clean slate, and I'd just do the observations, the physical experiments. I'd do all that as many times as needed doing to achieve some kind of predictability in said results using substances and elements and matter.
Oh, okay. So let me be more specific. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find out the fluid density that we're using. I already know my value for acceleration for gravity, and then I'm going to find the fluid volume. Those are the things that I'm going to find, and I'm going to make a number of predictions, as well as surface area of the object, the mass, blah, blah, blah. But that's what I'm going to do. So specifically, how would you make predictions? We're not at experiments yet. The objects aren't going to be in the water until we make 100 predictions. How do you arrive at a prediction for each object?
The predictions aren't important. The results are.
No, but we're confirming. We're confirming the predictive power. There we go. Thank you. We're confirming the predictive power of various formulas and using various variables within those formulas. We're just confirming how we can make a prediction, because things like this are very important for, I don't know, people who build ships. Shit like this is very important. So we're just confirming how we can accurately do this. So I provided my side.
But you can practically demonstrate shipbuilding. Shipbuilding is a practical demonstration of engineering and applied sciences.
Right, and they use the buoyancy formula with gravity included. That's my point.
Yeah, but it's still practical. It's not theoretical or conceptual or on paper.
Perfect. So using gravity within the buoyancy formula, people who build ships can accurately make predictions, reliable and confirmable by the ship floating as required and as predicted, right? These are all accurate statements to make, right?
Yeah, if you want to assert all that, I'm fine. It doesn't threaten me in any way, shape, or form.
Perfect. So we're good with gravity.
You're good with gravity. I don't need gravity to exist.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. If you
leads to the
remove
question
gravity,
then.
how would you determine the buoyancy of something?
I would determine the buoyancy of something like by putting some water. That would be a start.
Right. So I can predict whether something's going to float or sink, and it would be confirmed by my experiment. So I'm asking you, how do you predict? You can confirm it afterward, but how would you predict?
No. You also, like me, need to clean the slate.
I don't need to. I have something that works.
Okay, well, you'll always beg the question. You'll always have a cognitive bias then. That's what you've proven.
Okay, so we're not going to obfuscate and attack each other. What I'm saying is,
that's a fact.
I have a particular method, and it has particular variables within it.
arrive at any conclusion without it. So that's why you have it. That's why
Here's my predictive conclusion.
Wait.
Is that I'm going to make 100 predictions about 100 objects, and I'm going to say this one will sink, this one will float, blah blah blah, all the way down for 100. Then we're going to perform this experiment, and all 100 will be accurately predicted, confirming the formula that I use that includes gravity. And then I'm going to ask you how you make or what predictions you make, and I would be willing to bet that less than 50% you're correct on.
No. You the only reason you're employing your predictions is because you're nothing without them.
This has nothing to do with him and what he is. The point is that whether he makes
It
his
has
predictions,
everything to do with that because
when he makes his predictions, this has nothing to do with him. As soon as you make a prediction, it's an objective yes or no answer.
You're speaking for him.
Yeah, and I don't object to what he said.
But he can only speak for him.
Okay, so whatever words he used, I now use them. So we're good.
Oh, so you're a clone of each other. You share.
No. What he said.
I think you're maybe misunderstanding what BioDual's saying. So I'm hoping that rewording it is helping get the point across.
Right, and I don't object to Emerald's
I'm not
interpretation.
I'm not misunderstanding what he's saying at all.
Then I'm curious how you get to the conclusion that this has to do with him, like personally, and what he is without or with those equations, when this has to do with just an objective question of.
But it's not an objective
testing.
question. You have pre-installed ideas already.
Which is used to generate an answer to the question, does this object float?
No, it doesn't.
How not?
Do you know what empiricism is? Objectivity?
Yes.
So you clear the decks. You come with no pre-installed anything.
Okay, so
Right,
I'll
that's
entertain
what that's what he's trying to ask you. He's saying that with this preconception of gravity, we can come up with accurate predictions of whether things will float. Can you, like as you say, you want to clean the slate, you want to clear the deck, you want to have no preconceptions. Can you, without gravity, still accurately predict the buoyancy of objects? Yes or no? And if so,
Yes.
how?
You just remove it from the equation.
Okay, so where's the equation without gravity that predicts whether things float?
Well, you'd have to do the experiment yourself without it and see
Well,
if
no,
it changes.
the point is predictive power, doing it before the experiment.
So you're begging the question again.
It's not. Do you know what begging the question means?
Yes.
What does it mean?
You have the equation. Okay? And you think the predictive power of that equation is going to lead you to a definite result.
Okay.
You don't know that for a fact.
And that's fine. That's fine. I will entertain that. I don't know that the buoyancy formula that includes gravity, I don't know for a fact that that is accurate. But I'm going to use it, and when we perform the experiment, the results of that experiment will confirm or reject that formula as being accurate. That's fine. So I'm going to use that predictively. I'm not making any assumptions that it is accurate. I'm just going to use that, and we'll find out when we perform the experiment. So what are you using a formula to make these predictions on your side? You wiped the slate clean. Are you using a formula?
No.
Okay, so what are you doing to make predictions?
I'm not.
You're
So
not,
just
or you
not
can't?
making predictions.
No. Why?
Because I am. I'm trying to see if the buoyancy formula, as we know it, is accurate. Because of course I've been told gravity exists. I've been told buoyancy formula exists and that it's accurate, but I haven't done it. So this is a great experiment to see if it is accurate. So I'm going to use the buoyancy formula. So I'm wondering on your side how you would make accurate predictions,
You just
or possibly accurate.
You're just constructing a hypothetical argument without any practical demonstration. So
The practical
it has
demonstration
real-world
is when the
application.
objects are dropped into the water and we measure whether they float or not.
Right.
This
We
is
just talked
entirely
about chip
practical.
building. Yeah, we just talked about shipbuilding, right?
Because it's words.
No, but we just talked about people who build ships, right? So this has a practical use to it because we need to know, we need accurate ways of predicting these things because ships exist.
So how would you practically demonstrate a solar system?
Right. So we're not going to obfuscate because I'm still waiting for you to answer my question.
We are going to obfuscate.
No, the experiment here is about dropping 100 objects into water. It is not about the solar system.
Demonstrate a solar system?
Sorry, Merle. For the same reasons that you ignored my question, I'm going to now ignore your question.
No worries.
The subject is objects and buoyancy, not the solar system. Don't change the subject.
I can change the subject whenever I feel to. At any given time, in any given moment.
You can, but don't expect that we'll follow you.
I'm not expecting you to follow me. I don't even know who you are.
Would you predict that we would?
What formula would
I don't come here and pretend the Earth's a globe.
Neither do we.
You actually do pretend it's a globe.
I'm sorry, Whammer. I provide evidence. When's the last time you provided evidence for a flat Earth? Nice.
And by the way, earlier you said that you would just remove gravity. If that were the case and it were to be true, anything that would float would not sink into the water at all. It would literally sit on top of the water with none of it being penetrated into the water.
Practically demonstrate that without
every boat that's dropped into water always has some portion of the boat below the water. Period.
Exactly.
Why are you all afraid of practical demonstration?
No, we're not. I'm simply saying that if you were to just remove gravity, what would be the result is just sitting on top of the water. That little bit that it goes under the water, let's say that it is going to float, that little bit that it does go under the water, that's what you would need to predict. How buoyant is that? Without gravity, you need to add something back into the equation or it would just be on top.
What do you think of practical demonstration as a way to decipher what actually is happening in this reality?
Okay, I'll literally go get a cup and put something in it and then show that it does dip below the water. I didn't think that you would need a picture or a very visual with that. I thought that would be common sense, that things that are floating still go under the water at least a little bit.
So, no, I asked you what you think of practical demonstration.
I mean, practical demonstrations are obviously very helpful because they let us see how the universe actually behaves outside of theory. That being said, there is a place for predictions and not just immediately testing things directly. If you've been chartered to build a cruise ship, you're not going to build 100 cruise ships, see if they float, and then pick the one that works and then build that again, because that's way too expensive. So what they will do in industries like shipbuilding is use theoretical knowledge that's been tested before, predict how their model of the boat will behave, and then only once that is satisfactory will they continue with manufacturing.
This is earthbound knowledge. When did you practically demonstrate the universe?
I didn't, and we're not talking about the universe.
Well, you're talking about ships, but before that you said we have theoretical concepts to predict the universe.
No, I did not say the universe in that sentence.
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Yep.
I couldn't remember. I couldn't say either way. I don't know.
I probably said predict how the universe works. By that, I just mean how things in the universe work. So
what
universally?
What universe is that?
I meant universe as in universally. Someone else just corrected me.
But what is the universe?
I consider it to just be the collection of everything.
Okay. Have you practically demonstrated that?
I haven't seen everything, so no.
Do you even know it exists?
I mean, there is a sense in which we can define everything. So sure.
And if everything exists is in a universe and there is something that exists, then by definition it's in the universe.
Back to the original question. You're letting Merle deflect you by asking this fucking question.
So do you know how big the universe is?
Nope.
Pretty big. Probably bigger than Earth.
Do you know what the universe is really comprised of?
It's bigger than 2 football fields.
Not in its totality. But I do know that it contains boats. And I do know that boats can be used for practical demonstrations. So I do know that it's also important to make predictions about how boats behave. A
isn't it
simpler
fair to
example of a
say
boat
that
is an object
most
being
of
dropped
your-
into the water.
Isn't it fair to say that most of your knowledge is earthbound knowledge, and when it comes to space and the universe, you beg the question?
The first half of that, I'd say, is completely accurate. Most of my knowledge is earthbound, and for that reason, I'd like to keep the subject on earthbound things, like dropping objects into water.
Well, how is dropping objects in water going to bring you closer to whether the Earth's a sphere or a lateral horizontal plane?
It isn't.
Gravity.
Can you have a horizontal lateral plane and have gravity as well?
I don't know. You tell me.
Parts, probably parts, but it wouldn't work all the time. But simple objects falling, probably.
With the current, like, if you use the same exact formulation for gravity, being point mass attraction and the inverse square law, then you'd need the plane to be infinite, and you would need the plane to be infinitely rigid.
Why would you need the plane to be infinite?
Because otherwise there would be less gravity at the edges.
Oh well, that's
Yeah,
true.
the mass of the
And
finite
it needs to be
plane
infinitely
would
rigid, or it would
collapse
collapse into a spheroid shape.
Yeah.
So you've at
So-
least considered the possibility that the Earth may not be a globe, right?
No,
Sure.
no.
I mean,
The
yeah,
only thing that I
If-
personally,
well, I asked Emerald. You're happy to jump in, Biodual, but I was really directing that at Emerald.
that's
I
fine.
mean, I'm fine with hypothesizing, alternative, realities.
Mhm.
But ultimately, we have to follow those to their logical conclusions and then see if we can rule them out or not.
But I could at least hear in your sincerity that you'd at least considered it, because you mentioned infinite plane, which means you would have had to at least consider that as a possibility or an option. Sure. And yeah, so no, respect for that, because I think there is a difference between a baller who is so absolute truth that is fact, and the one that's honest enough to say, well, okay, I'm 99% sure, but there's this slight possibility that I might be wrong.
Right. And in that case that I am wrong, right, I'd like to understand and learn more about what that would be like, which is, I think, the meaning behind this buoyancy question. We're trying to ask you, as a flat earther, how would you, say, do what shipbuilders do, which is predict the buoyancy of an object without, the baller's version of gravity? Is that possible? And if so, like, is there an equation for it? I mean, it's fine if there isn't, right? Like, it's totally fine to just say, well, no, not yet.
Well, I think that's a fair assessment of it, because this is relatively new in modern time, and as Jem has stated pretty well, if you look at someone like Anthony Riley, who is, putting forward the idea of changing certain things in the education system or physics or science, I mean, that's an overhaul of universal laws. I mean, that's a huge step, and I don't think we're anywhere near having equations that are universally accepted anytime soon.
Are the ones that have been...
You don't have equations that would pass, just basic glance.
Are there equations, period? Like, universal acceptance or not, has there been in this community sort of a development of equations that don't have gravity yet have the same predictive power?
The closest I've heard in 6 years is relative density, and Chemo's got an interesting argument
The
that
closest you heard
there may
of
not be
specific
pressure
gravity?
as well.
Oh,
Yeah, but relative density doesn't have a formula to it.
it does, Island, because it's called specific gravity and it relies on gravitational acceleration.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Sleeping Warriors made up relative density disequilibrium bullshit. There is no equation for that.
No,
there's no velocity.
Is that, I
There
guess, a
is
satisfactory answer for your question then, BioDual?
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, no.
It seems like the answer is just to the negative, that there's not yet an equation that can do the same.
No, because anytime that relative density is brought up, I always bring up tinfoil floating on sulfur hexafluoride. and then I wait for the next goalpost.
For a what?
Sulfur-hexafluoride is a funny gas, by the way. It's used, among other things, as an insulator in high voltage, well, not wires as such, it's sort of a pipe thing.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. And you get to fiddle around with like, you know, cubic meter size batteries of it when you're doing those things.
I get shot just talking, that's funny.
Yeah, there's that.
I spotted you some shit as well.
Yeah. When you have a brownish gas that seems to collect around your feet, you know, the first time you see it, it sort of gets you that idea that maybe you should find some oxygen or something.
Yeah, find somewhere else to stand would be a good idea.
Yeah. It's not toxic as such, but, well.
Yeah, and Emerald, there's a lot of propaganda surrounding the question. You know, there's a fake flat Earth proponent. It took a lot of us some years to figure that out, but there's also a shill network and rollout that's associated with this. So you have a propaganda model that is the ice wall that is a full 360 perimeter with Earth in the center, surrounded by a dome. And that's what many people associate with flat Earth. So I don't associate myself with that. Therefore, I'm not a flat earther.
Okay.
At any point when you state that water lies flat, you are a flat earther, and it doesn't get anywhere from that. Okay? Whatever fantasy you have about what is, you know, at the perimeter or infinite planes or whatever bullshit, doesn't matter. If water lies flat, you're a flat earther.
You're saying water at rest doesn't lie flat?
Yep.
Riley gave some numbers in his latest video. And with those numbers, someone calculated that the lead is going to fall at 9,000 meters per second squared.
That's pretty smart.
So, that's some amazing numbers.
He doesn't think water at rest isn't flat.
Yeah, that'd be correct.
The annoying nerdy gotcha there is that water forms a lip around the edge of the container.
Oh,
Only
shit.
on a
You guys
small
heard
scale.
that? I mean, he's serious.
Serious?
Then you have to have a container for the meniscus and surface tension to form as well.
What do you mean water at rest?
Definitely.
What do you mean with that? Water
don't
at
know
rest
what that
is
means.
water in zero G,
Where's
and it forms a sphere.
Where's the meniscus in a dam or a pond?
The beaches.
Those waters aren't perfectly still. That's the problem.
But even
You're
if
out
they
to
were
lunch,
still,
my man.
even if they were still, they still wouldn't be flat in a dam.
Right. I'm still waiting for flat earthers to change that statement.
No, you
Water
guys are
doesn't
out to
curve.
lunch.
I'm still waiting
That's all
for
I
them
can
to
tell
start
you.
saying big bodies of water doesn't curve. I'm waiting for that transition.
Some say that it's large bodies of water don't curve, but I mean we have tides and shit, so water's never at rest.
That's a very interesting question to ask. Is if oceans and lakes don't curve, what are tides? Like what's realistically happening on a flat Earth with flat water? How are tides, or what are tides? Sorry.
And where the hell are they going? But you know, aside from that, it ain't flat.
That's a good rhyme to live by.
You know, even if you took out the wind and the currents and all that, and the tides especially, it wouldn't be flat.
And because we've measured that the vertical lines are not parallel, so
yeah.
My favorite part of tides is that
Water at rest is flat.
when the wind blows at my face, but the water in front of me is receding away from
You
me.
know you're
That's my
lying to
favorite.
yourself when you say it's not.
No,
Really?
you
So
don't.
so when we take a measurement that shows that two plumb lines are
guys are
not
just full of
parallel,
shit.
yet water is always perpendicular to plumb, somehow the water is parallel. Show me geometrically how water can be flat yet have non-parallel plumb lines.
Water at rest
And then
is
I'll
flat,
believe you.
dude. That's for all intents and purposes. It's flat.
Okay.
No.
Well, as long as those
Yeah,
intents and
it's
purposes
a pretty
span
general
no more than
statement,
like 3
but I
miles.
mean,
then
everyone
sure.
can agree on that one.
No, because we can
I
give
mean,
you
if you're not
examples.
agreeing to that, like, there's something going on with you,
You
dude.
have nothing
Yeah, it's
backing
called
that
higher
claim up.
education.
I don't know what to tell you, bro.
You have literally nobody on our side agreeing to that.
Seriously,
So
just like look at your table. It's
everybody
flat,
agreed
right?
to
Then
that.
look at water at rest. It's fucking flat. I mean,
No-
what
no
the
table
fuck
is
wrong
perfectly
with
flat.
You guys?
It is if a marble doesn't move on it.
I mean,
What if it finds a
water-
little divot?
Water in my sink, per se, is for all intents and purposes flat.
Well,
But
what if?
the earth,
Why always looking for a what if rather than just accepting reality the way it is?
oh, we do
And
accept
water
reality the way it
curves.
is.
Honestly,
What
Lines
if?
aren't parallel.
What if? What if the Earth isn't a globe? What if? Why don't you ask the what
Then,
if there?
then,
Then-
if the Earth is not a globe, then all of physics and most of mathematics are tossed out the window completely.
Yeah, and we do say
Just the one
what-
variable or two, not necessarily.
No, we would have to have parallel lines be defined as not parallel, if that were the case.
You could easily
That's a good one, too.
make it work without that one variable. Yeah.
It's not
Laws
just one
of
variable.
perspective would change as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're on the equator heading east and take
You
exactly
gotta pull the
90
y out of it, and yeah, it'll become true. That's what you do.
you turn 90 degrees to the left, you will head north to the North Pole. You can do that anywhere on the equator and land on the exact same position. Explain that to me on anything other than a convex or a concave shape. You can
Oh, the
Smoking that dope, my man.
equator wouldn't be a straight line then, so it would just be a curve.
well
Where-
on a globe
where-
it would be a straight line.
Where are
No,
the two
But on a
plumb
flat Earth, would
bobs?
not.
Where are the two plumb bobs that aren't vertical and?
Well, you can
perpendicular?
take the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, but there's like two theodolites pointing at each other. I don't know. Biodual posted it earlier.
Well,
No
yeah,
assumption.
over the
they're
half a
not-
mile lake.
They're not plumb
Yeah.
bobs. They're theodolites.
Yeah, and they're
Right, which
plumb.
is fine.
Where are the two plumb bobs?
Are you saying that theodolites can't calibrate itself to be plumb bobs?
Why would you need plumb bobs when theodolites can just do the plumb bobs work?
Exactly.
Right,
That's why,
Right,
that's why we use
that's a
theodolites.
great question.
So, what's more accurate?
More accurate, probably a theodolite, because you can make precise measurements.
So, a
GPS is-
theodolite. I hope Flat Earth's listening to this. Today, they're saying theodolites are more accurate than plumb bobs.
I'm
and
sorry,
why?
Merle. I'm only speaking for myself. I don't speak for anyone else, so I don't know why you said they.
Theodolites are more accurate than plumb bobs. A plumb bob's just a fucking rock on a bit of string. A theodolite's a precisely built, measured, and constructed engineering device for precisely measuring and constructing other engineering devices. There you go.
Right, Merle. If you're
Well,
gonna laugh at that,
theodolite
what's the degree of accuracy for a general
So,
theodolite, and then for a plumb bob, what's the degree of measurement that it has?
so how is a rock and a bit of string not brilliant tech?
It's
Because
brilliant with
there's wind.
rudimentary material.
There's wind and other variables that the theodolite gets rid of because it's not in the atmosphere.
What if it's done indoors?
Well, then it's more accurate. But we're not measuring
but there's
across a
still
bridge
wind.
that's indoors.
Yeah.
Well, it still won't be more accurate than a theodolite. Let's get that straight. It'll be more.
it'll
It'll
be-
it'll
It won't be
itself be more
susceptible to
accurate.
as many
You
confounding
already have a
factors.
datum line indoors. You don't need one, you nuggets.
I'm a little surprised Merle laughed at that.
Aye.
It's laughable. You don't think water at rest is flat. It's laughable.
No, I would call it level.
Same here. I mean, that's what we designed them for, to get things level.
There's not a single piece of evidence anywhere that the water at rest would be flat.
Just silly observations.
Keep telling yourself that, buddy.
Silly observations.
Honestly,
and
just
assumptions.
keep saying that. Maybe
Tell
maybe
me
it will
some
become
of the
true.
evidence. What evidence do you have?
Water's an inert substance. It doesn't do anything. It is acted upon.
You know, you
that's
think
all.
you've heard it all until you come to this fucking server.
No, it is acted upon.
Wait, do you have evidence? Do you have measurements of this flatness that
Holy
you speak of?
shit!
Doesn't you can laugh at it like a mentalist, but
Well,
there's
still
nothing
get
that
up and do
you
the
can
like
say.
fandango jig, you know.
This high level fucking moron bill.
Yeah. So me being a complete moron, I would like for you to present evidence
I know,
so I can
it's
get
upper
rid of-
level moron.
So I can.
Right.
No, that's fine. Upper level. I am the biggest moron you've ever met. So I'm asking you to help me by providing me evidence to flatness that you seem to have that I don't have. Do you have
I mean, I'm not
any
saying
of
you're
this?
stupid. I'm saying this is heavy duty stupidity.
No, that's fine. I'm stupid. I'm retarded.
No, I'm
I'm
not
stupid.
saying you're stupid. I'm
No, but
saying
I am.
this is
But I
heavy
am.
duty stupidity.
Whammer, I am. I'm calling myself stupid. So I'm asking you for your help because you're laughing at these assertions and statements. So I assume you know what you're talking about. So I'm asking you for the evidence.
You're the
Hold
experts
Whammer,
on the
hold
panel.
I'm so close.
No, you're
I'm
the
so close,
experts
Whammer.
on the panel.
Whammer, I'm so close.
I'm listening to you.
Whammer, I'm
I'm
so
here
close.
to learn. And
I'm so
and I
close,
hear this
man.
guy
Just
say
let me-
water at rest isn't
Just let me
flat.
get there.
Then,
I'm so close, Whammer. Whammer, I'm so close. Whammer, I'm so close. I'm almost
You
there.
know, when you hear that, I'm sure you lost like 50 listeners. They're like, "Fuck this guy."
Okay, Whammer, I'm retarded. I'm retarded. I'm stupid.
Immediately.
So I'm asking you for your help. What evidence do you have
guys.
for flatness? What evidence do you have for flatness so I can learn? What do you have?
To look at it.
Right. So look at what?
What
Can
the
you provide
fuck?
the evidence to me?
Just go take a look at it, man.
Yeah, I've looked at it so many times, but I'm a moron, so I don't know how to
Go
interpret.
get a little water,
I'm
dude.
asking for your-
Just
I'm asking
take a
for your
sip
evidence.
and look at it. Isn't that hard?
Right, I have, but I'm a moron. I can't interpret it.
Just
I want
not
you
that
to
hard,
feed me the evidence.
I was.
Do you
I was a
Whammer, have
moron,
evidence, or
and
do you
I-
just want him to come up with his own?
You want me to take a photo of my cup of
I was.
water in it?
I was a moron, and I went to the beach, and I looked at the
Like
water, and the
beer?
sun went below.
Any type of liquid.
So I looked at the sun, and it went below the water on the sea.
So just to be clear, Whammer, you don't have any measurements of flatness, right? Just to be clear.
To be clear, you, sir, do not think water at rest is flat, and that is regrettable.
I haven't been presented any evidence to think otherwise. That's what I'm saying. So I'm asking
That's
you.
what we're clear about.
I'm extending.
And that's fine, and we can move on.
I'm extending my hand to you.
Get
for you
over
to
it.
help.
It's okay.
So you don't.
So
have,
no
you
evidence
don't
of
have
flatness,
anything to
right?
present then?
Evidence.
Oh, okay. so
I
you
know
don't.
we laugh
Alright.
at you when you say evidence as
Guys,
well.
guys,
but
come on. He looked at
What
a
evidence?
patch of water and guessed. I mean, what more evidence do you want?
that is true.
There it
That's
is.
pretty good.
It's tuddling.
It's done.
What kind of evidence do you want, bro?
And any measurement of
Get
flat.
some fucking
That's
water and look at it at rest.
No, any measurement of flatness.
Yeah.
You drink
I'm looking
water,
at my
right?
cup here, and I'm seeing this weird phenomenon where the edges are turned up.
Oh, you're seeing that, huh?
The brim, they call it.
So well, I mean, you told me to just look at
Look
it, right?
at the
I'm looking
lunacy
at
that
it.
you have to
and it's
go
not
through
flat.
to say water at rest isn't flat. You gotta go
Lunacy?
through
What are you talking about? I just looked at it. I did exactly what you told me to do, man. And guess what?
Well, to
Look
all the
at it, there's a lip-
listeners, go ahead, grab some water, put in your cup, and at rest, you tell me if it's not flat.
Yeah, I have a pool in my backyard.
I just
no,
did that.
100 for 100
The edges
will
do the
agree
same
with
thing.
me.
The edges around the edge,
100
they
for
do the same
100.
thing.
Well, no. You might want to lower that to 99 because I have a cup with a little bit of water in it right now, and guess what? There's a meniscus. Yeah, hilarious, right?
I
You told me to
wonder-
do with something.
It really is hilarious.
I wonder if Whammer really thinks laughing is a logical argument.
Probably does think that.
This isn't even an argument. That's your issue, my man.
He doesn't think that. He just
There's
knows
no
he has
argument
no
going on
evidence.
here. You're arguing with yourself, bro.
man.
just not presenting anything.
You just got
Whammer.
debunked,
That's
Whammer.
it, really.
You guys are arguing with yourselves. I'm not arguing with you. It just is what it is.
I know, and it is got a lip to the edge of it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Whammer, I just need evidence, man. That's all I need.
So what?
Whammer, I would love to convert to be a flat earther, and if you can convert
And
me,
you know what?
holy
I'm
shit,
pretty
Whammer.
sure Gem Panda thinks water at rest is flat. I mean, come on. If he doesn't, yeah, something's wrong, guys.
Whammer, it'd
something
be
is
so
wrong.
cool if you
It's
can
not
convert me.
a flat earth.
Can you provide?
Something's
Just give me
up. I don't know
something.
what's going on with you guys, but like Merle said, you're just not being honest.
Right, and I'm being honest right now, Whammer. I would
I don't know
like
why
to
you're
see
not
the
being
evidence.
honest, though.
I would like to see the evidence that you have that measures the surface of water as flat. I would love to see your measurements for that, and that is the most honest statement I've made. I would love to see that evidence.
Do you have that evidence?
You see, Whammer, one of the things I do at times is I rebuild engines. And when you look over the where the head gasket goes and says it looks flat, that's not really good enough. So why the hell would I look over an ocean and say it looks flat and it kind of doesn't?
Water fluids at rest are flat. I mean,
that's
you're getting
like
too technical. Just look at it. I mean,
That's
imagine you're
I
just
mean,
looking.
if you
and
want to
someone
limit it
was
to
like,
that,
hey,
then
what's the water up to? Oh, it's flat right now. You know, I mean, you would say something like that. You're acting as if you wouldn't.
I mean, what good
because
does
my
that
native language
statement
is
give us?
English,
Because
so,
the oceans aren't stationary.
Huh?
Water in the ocean isn't at rest. So what does water being at rest, being flat, have anything to do with the shape of the
Oh,
water?
so you agree at water at rest? You know, it appears flat.
Nope. I'm saying that regardless of whether that statement's true or not, it doesn't change.
Well,
the
do you
shape of
think
the
it's
Earth.
true?
I already told you why I don't, and because I've
Oh,
just
well,
verified
you
it using
don't.
your
That's
method.
Literally nobody on our side thinks so, Whammer. So
Who's on your side? Who agrees to that?
Not
Fucking
really an
rubbish.
2.5 billion people are
I
on
think, well, I mean, you just gave
No,
us
I
a,
don't think they actually agree with that
This is a
statement.
bit silly.
No
You
one
just gave
agrees
us-
with that
you just gave us
statement.
a
You
procedure.
cannot
You just said
agree
fill a-
with that statement.
you just said
Why
fill
are
a
you
cup or
guys
something with
feeding
water,
into it?
and I did. And guess what?
You
when you
cannot.
do that,
If
you
you're
get a meniscus.
disagreeing with that statement, then there's something going on, dude.
Yeah, it's called doing science.
You have some
and
kind of
observing
motive
that your
or
claim
something.
is wrong.
It's called following the evidence.
No.
Oh, yeah. I've
I've
got my
a quick
cup here.
question.
Who do you think I'm going to trust? My cup here with the non-flat meniscus-bound water, or you telling me that that's not the case?
Yeah.
Start listening
Also,
to me, my
I'm
man.
telling you that
You're in this,
I'm telling you
that's
that I
your,
follow
know,
the evidence.
That's your problem right now.
I prefer to go with the empirical evidence over some guy on the
Listen to
internet.
me on this one.
Do you think meniscus is a sexual word? Is that why you keep laughing at it?
I think he does. You know,
Because it says men is kiss.
flat is a meme
Yeah.
to begin with. It's
Oh, wait a minute. Here's a drop of water on my table. It looks like a semicircle.
yeah. Saying water lies flat to begin with is
That
something
is just such rubbish thinking.
Shut up.
No.
I mean,
I'm not
your
thinking
lines
it,
of
I'm
logic
seeing
are
it.
flawed.
Shut up, Whammer. Just a
We don't
second.
even have to use
It's
logic.
just the case. I mean,
Put a drop of water on it. Put a drop of water on your desk.
Marco's right.
and
You guys
take
are
a
being
picture of it.
dishonest. I mean, fuck.
There's a drop of water right here, and it is not flat.
We're talking about water at rest in your cup. We're not talking about individual specks of water, bro.
Well, that's
Let me
water,
put this
and it's
water
at
in a cup.
rest.
Get
No.
over, you know,
Let's put this
your little detour to try to, you know, get around this notion that water isn't flat out.
Well, no, I mean, you've
Just
allowed these detours to
doesn't-
exist because your question was
false. What
underspecified.
you're saying is false, bro.
Sorry,
All
reality
general
disagrees
purpose,
with that claim.
Fucking water at rest looks flat.
Here,
Okay,
Whammer, let
that's
me
the
ask an
bottom line.
honest question. Let me ask an honest question, and I expect an honest answer. How many
You're gonna be able to
droplets?
move me on
How?
that one.
Hold on,
That's
Whammer,
just
Whammer,
too
hold on.
ridiculous.
Whammer, relax. Whammer, how many droplets of water does it take for water to not curve at rest? Because we both
What?
agree that little droplets of water, like Highlander
Oh,
put
so
it,
this
they
is your
curve.
little,
but those are really
your
tiny.
little-
Those are really tiny drops.
little
So they're
piece
like
to try to
Yeah, they're really
Turn
tiny drops.
my mind, flaw the thought, the absolute obvious nature that water at rest is flat. It's just not going to work, my man.
Let's start from the very small. We both know that droplets of water are curved.
Is water
we both know
elastic?
that,
Sure, you know, and it's individual form. Yeah, you know.
So now we're going to expand.
Droplets. Dude, we're
What
not
you're
talking
saying
about
is
that.
that-
You're changing the subject.
No. I'm making a very
He's asking a question
specific point.
related to this
Talking
subject.
about-
You're not really it doesn't sound like you're wanting to listen.
Because he knows where it goes, maybe.
No, like a pond or a fucking pool.
Right.
Any
No,
pool.
exactly.
Go
Right,
look at your pool, bro.
Yeah, I have a pool. Exactly. So now I'm asking you, from water being the size of a droplet to the size of a pool, how many droplets of water, or how much water does it take for water to not curve at rest? How many? Or how much?
Kind of an interesting question, actually. I don't know.
Right, and that's exactly what I'm getting at. If you don't,
fuck you don't know the fucking answer.
no, I do know the answer. Water
you don't
will
either.
always curve at rest.
Yeah.
It's just the degree of curvature that it has.
See, you're taking it out of the context, though.
No, I'm keeping it in the same context that we both
Dude,
agree.
I'm just talking about fucking water at rest.
Yeah, except that
dude.
encapsulates droplets too. So you could either change your question so that it excludes droplets,
I'm talking about
or
the
accept that the
like,
answer
the
doesn't
act-
agree
the
with what you think it
actual,
is.
like, individual nature. No, I'm just talking. Look out on. It's fucking flat.
Well, if you want to make that blanket claim, then I'm
Well,
sorry.
I mean, you're saying
disagrees.
that blanket claim is false.
Okay,
Yeah, because
here's
in
another.
general it isn't, because water droplets are curved.
Here's a follow-up, Whammer. Let's
I'm
do
not
this,
talking
Whammer.
about water droplets, bro.
Are
fine.
water droplets water? Yes or no? Are water droplets
sure.
water?
I mean, you can go there.
And are water droplets at rest? Yes or no?
What?
Are water droplets at rest?
Sure.
If I have one sitting on my desk. Well, there you go. So a water droplet is water, and it's at rest, so it's water at rest. So it's an answer to your question. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. If your question, if you don't want to talk about droplets, then change your question.
We're not.
Whammer, we can go to the big. That's fine. I have a follow-up. So we both recognize water droplets. That's fine. And
You're acting like that's
let's just say a big body of water, like a lake or an ocean. Let's just make the assumption based on no evidence that those bodies of water are at rest and flat. That's fine. We'll make that assumption. So what I'm going to ask now is, when does the
water? That's
hold
what
on,
you call a
Whammer!
little too stoned.
Whammer! Shut up! Shut the fuck up! So now what I'm going to ask is, at what volume of water does the property of water change?
I'm not really talking about the properties of water.
We are, because we know that little tiny droplets of water, just water, does have curve. And then we can make the assumption that big bodies of water, big bodies of water are flat. We can make that assumption. So I'm asking you,
water can curve, sure.
Hold on. At what volume do the properties that water exhibits, like this curve, not curve, at what volume does that property change?
So it has to be in a container.
No. So we're not going to change the subject. We're not going to. What volume does it cease to curve? It changes its property in order to do this.
That's just still besides the point, my man.
Not really, because we can both establish that it curves when it's small, and then you're making the assertion that it doesn't curve when it's big.
Dude.
So I'm asking you, at what point? Where's the crossover? So we have 20 droplets of water. We have 20 droplets of water. It still curves. What about 1,000? What about 2,000? What about 1,000,000 droplets of water? Does that still curve?
I don't know what you want me to say, dude.
I'm asking for your honest assessment.
Obviously, fucking water droplets curve.
Okay, but what if you have
But
1,000,000 of them
water
connected?
laying at rest are flat. I mean, you should be able to say that.
Right. So 1,000,000 water droplets.
But you can't.
Together,
I don't know why.
Does that still curve?
Agree with me that bodies of water at rest are flat.
Are you trying to say that cohesion is like synonymous with the claim of gravity?
What, a table's level, would you say not flat also?
No, it's just like a stupid point. Like, so what if there's pressure on a water droplet, and the most efficient shape is spherical in nature, but it's obviously not a total sphere, so it doesn't even support your claim or like your argument.
I think you got here late because that's not my point. My point is that water does curve, and I think the amount of water.
So you're gonna take the context out of what we're saying and try to just bash on it. Like
a little
obviously
bit.
water curves. Okay, yeah, there's like fucking waves, and there's like there's tides, there's all kinds of stuff. We don't exclude that. We're not saying the Earth is like two-dimensional. If you want to straw man us, just go that far,
I really think you missed the point of what we're talking about.
No, I'm just what I'm saying is if you're gonna straw man us, at least use a better one.
It would be a straw man to take what you're saying right now, which sounds reasonable, and then bash that. But Whammer made a much more vague general claim and is tripling down on it.
Yeah, but
so it's not really a straw man
right?
of Whammer's point. It'd be a straw man of yours because you're being reasonable.
You know what we mean, though, right? Because I know Whammer and I agree on a lot of the same points.
I know
Okay,
what most flat
maybe he's
earthers-
just not doing a good job of articulating it then.
I'm addressing what Whammer stated and asserted. That's all.
All right, well.
And that's why I brought up the water droplet. He said water at rest is flat. And that's why I'm asking, and we're establishing at what amount does water cease to curve and begins to be flat?
Well, it depends on the medium it's in, right?
I wouldn't say that it does.
You don't think so?
I mean, we're doing all this on Earth, so we can have the atmosphere be our medium, if you want to call it that, or big bodies of water can be its own medium, depending on the context.
Yeah, I guess the only problem with that argument is even though you're kind of winning the small battle of his words, like you kind of lose in any other context.
Debatable. I think if I remove his premise and show his premise is false, then his conclusion is false. Obviously, so there's nothing.
But even then, I asked the same question. You just came up, Riggs, with immediately an actual plausible answer, which is starting to consider the factors, whereas Whammer just spent like 20 minutes obfuscating and not answering at all.
I
There's a
considered the
difference.
factors.
So I appreciate,
But that
Riggs, what
just
you're
really
doing by
wasn't what I
actually
was
entertaining
talking
the
about,
question.
though.
When you say water is flat,
Bodies of water at rest.
easy there.
Okay,
When you
so
say
well,
water
when
is
does
flat,
water start becoming a body and stop just being a collection of droplets?
Stating the fucking obvious.
when you say
I'm
water is
trying to
flat,
go into detail about it. Just look at the fucking pond at rest.
Fucking known
You're gonna sit here and say
Christ,
that doesn't
what's wrong
look
with you
flat?
people?
You're out of your mind.
You're honestly, some of you are just as bad as the flat earthers. You fucking are.
Yeah. Good for you, Chris. When you say
Oh,
water
Chris
is flat,
is
you know, it's gonna
Oh,
be
fuck
flat
you,
enough.
sort you prick. You're on my fucking shit list
It's
after
gonna
your
be
fucking
flat
comments
enough
to me,
that you
prick.
can level a building to it, right?
Fucking you
But
boring,
it may not
fucking,
be
dribbling,
actually
autistic cunt.
When you say it's flat, it could be flat enough that you could level
When
a
you
building
say it's
within
flat,
the tolerances of it.
It sounds
Like,
like,
I feel like this is a
reasonably flat something out of it. That does not mean it's actually
we need to
flat.
make
It
sure
just
we
means
have like a good definition of body of
level.
water. When does water become a body and not just a collection of droplets?
Well, there's that.
That's the question. So, Whammer,
Well,
what do
when
you
does-
consider
when
a
does
body
space
of water, and what
become
don't you
real
consider a body of water?
and not just a bunch of videos?
At all times, always. Like, what do you mean?
Henry Kissinger. Yeah, it sounds a bit like Henry Kissinger, but just not as.
See, the difference
more of a
between
dick.
what I said and what you guys said is that I actually steel-manned you. I gave you your best argument. And it still doesn't make sense. It always comes back to pictures in space, right? I
No.
steel-manned you.
To a certain extent, you can have other videos. You can have videos.
Well, when
from,
all your other
from Earth.
evidence is unfalsifiable, like you just rest on the cartoons. That's
No,
your best argument.
No,
that's not true
I
at
can
all.
I can take pictures of the ISS as it silhouettes across the sun. I could do something like that.
Okay. Well, prove it's not a drone or a plane or something like that.
Why? Why is the burden?
I don't make that assertion.
Well,
I make the assertion that it's a particular dimension and it's a particular distance away, and I can make these measurements as its silhouettes across the sun. Could I not?
Could you do it yourself?
Yes, I
Sounds
could.
like
Yes.
you're triangulating.
Yeah, that's fine. I can.
So
I can make the prediction.
Triangulate on your own.
I can make the prediction that it's going to cross between my point of view with the sun at a particular time. I can make that prediction, and oh shit,
Because
okay,
they
it's
tell
there.
you.
You're right. They do tell us, and you can confirm it. So when they tell us, and you confirm it, you can make these measurements based on the silhouette.
Doubt.
No, that's fine. You can say that. That's fine. I'm just giving you a methodology in which you can do
Why
it
is
yourself
it fine that I doubt it, though?
because you can have that opinion. That's fine. I don't care.
Well, what makes your side factual?
I just gave you a methodology to confirm what the
A
assertion.
methodology that, in your opinion, determines a conclusive evidence that this thing is up there, right?
Yes.
No,
Not
you can make
just, not
predictions.
just that something's
You can
up
make
there, but
predictions.
what you're saying is up there in the distance and in the function that it is.
Yeah,
right?
you can make predictions, and you can confirm that. That's what you could do. Yes.
yeah, he's given you a methodology you can use to verify or falsify his claim. You know, he's not trying to say that it is the truth, but this can be used to determine what the truth is. If he uses methodology, and you don't get the answers as per the predictions, and obviously he's wrong, but he's giving you something to prove him wrong or right with. I don't think the flat earth ever does that. They never give you an experimental formula or method you could use to determine whether their claims are true or false, you know?
Well,
This
we're
is the
not
reason
the
why
ones
folks say
claiming the
science doesn't
space
prove
is up
things,
there.
because science is basically just the same thing as that. It's a methodology that you can use to falsify a claim. So, I mean,
Yeah.
to the extent that there exist scientific experiments to check things like the existence of the ISS and where it is predicted to be, you can falsify that very easily if it's just not
Okay.
there.
Well, you can verify there's a silhouette up there, and it's not convincing to me, but okay.
Okay.
Well, not just a
what
silhouette,
is that
you
not
can-
convincing you of? Is it not convincing you that there's something up there, or like specifically of the function of it?
Oh, there's absolutely the impression of something up there. What it is, its function, you know, and what it really is, I couldn't tell you. I'm not going to go out of my way to pretend.
Riggs, if you actually communicated with a satellite, if you'd send information to it, got information from it, would that be good enough for you?
No, I think they're absolutely what you guys would call satellites up there, but they're not the same distance, and they're still stitched together the same way that your satellite technology stitches things together. So,
But we
you
know how far away they are through the methodology of just communicating with them. You know that.
Their distance is revealed when we use them.
No.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Well, you're wrong.
So
there would have to be some sleight of hand going on in order for you to have that kind of confidence.
No, it's called
And
science.
Even though, well, no. Just because I don't understand all of it doesn't mean that I can't see that that's where the trick lies. Like if you're a
It's
magician
absolutely
and
because you don't
you're hiding a
understand it.
card in your sleeve, I don't know the trick. I know you're hiding an extra card. I just don't know the trick.
that.
I mean, the extra context, right, is the understanding of light and how long it takes to get from point A to point B. So I mean, we can put that into question too. But if we're going to assume that light travels at this decided speed, and that we can
It's worse than that. It's radio waves that we're using, and the strange thing is that we assume the worst medium that it's going through for time delay reflectrometry, so we make it as close as possible. So if anything else, the error bar is actually it's slightly further away, not slightly closer. And even with that, when we're looking at that kind of error bar, we're not talking about an object that's 10 or 30 miles away. We know that, especially when it's comm satellites and geostationary, because they're about 30,000 miles away. And I've done that. So that's why I use
think,
that as one of my favorite bits of evidence, because I know how long the round trip is, and I know that's a reliable factor that I use in day-to-day for IT for what's called time to life.
Yeah.
Or TTL.
I think it's really useful to have all these methodologies and have confidence in them, but you also have to use that knowledge to kind of figure out how they've gone around deceiving you.
I have no evidence or reason to think that they are. So I'm going to ask you, in the sense of GPS, in what way are they deceiving us?
Exactly. You need to ask that question.
No, but do you have an
You
answer?
say you have no evidence whatsoever.
But
leads me to
you seem
believe
to be
that
very
I
confident
wouldn't
that
have
they.
much
I mean,
confidence in
Guys.
you figuring that out.
given that
Why
you're
go
telling
to
us that
G-
we.
why go to
Yes, sir.
GPS? Because
we do have evidence.
We don't
I
need.
mean, I've personally used these satellites. I have repeated the requirements that they say are there to use these satellites, and I've done that and got exactly the conditions and responses that they, in quotes, predict I would get. So it's not a fact of just believing something. They present, like the guys are saying, they present a methodology. I follow the methodology. I get the result that I require. I can hear my voice coming back from a satellite in the sky. The properties of that satellite are revealed by the physics. The distance cannot be tricked.
It's verified. That's the
Like,
difference. Riggs.
there's
And
no
it's
feasible way
calibrated.
for
One
anybody,
second,
for
please.
any today.
I don't know if anyone. Am I really low? I'm guessing
No,
not.
there's
Okay.
just a few rumpus in here. I might be one of them.
No, you're being cool, bro. But yeah, so I mean, this as I say, this is something that I used to use day to day in my work life. And whether it's sending a signal to a satellite, sending a signal to another building, finding a break in a cable, all of which I've done, and I know how far it is, I know where that cable break is, and I know the distance to the other building, I know the distance to the satellite just because of the time delays. And I can go and find that physical break, and I can go and repair it. I know the exact distance to that building within the tolerance values, and I can
I think it'd
confirm
be
it.
pretty easy, actually, just to remove a couple zeros and to spit out the number that you're looking for.
No, it
or
wouldn't,
to add a couple
because
zeros, rather.
that would not conform to RFC 1514, which is the communication standard that we have in IT. It wouldn't conform to the fact that when I go and look for a physical break in a cable, it's exactly where I expect it to be. So
No,
it's
I'm talking about between your systems and the satellite. That when it goes into a proprietary system, which you may have access to, they've given you all of the variables that you can play with and should expect when you're interfacing with this technology.
But radio hams have set up the whole system. There is no sleight of hand in that system, and it comports with the reported function and operation of the mysterious they you keep referring to.
It's not the interfacing with the satellite. It's the communication itself. It's not like you're asking the satellite how far it is. It's the nature of the ping and response time.
Thank you. Exactly. Yes.
And you cannot
and
just
what is
alter
the
physics to
response
make that
time to a
happen
satellite?
faster. We measure it in nanoseconds.
Right. It'll vary depending on the satellite.
Sorry,
depending on
milliseconds. So it'll be a millisecond latency delay.
You can measure it in change of frequency. It
Never
reveals
done it. Never done it that way.
it reveals its speed.
Wait. So you're telling me that when you're connecting to satellite, it's a millisecond?
In milliseconds.
Okay, well, give me an example.
It
Give me like how many? 50 milliseconds? 100? Like what? Give me something.
There's a time for geostationary satellites, and there's a time for low Earth orbit. Because guess what? They're at different distances. They say
there's different sets of satellites.
Foolish, do you have figures?
And guess
that you
what?
remember?
We see that they
From
are
my
different
memory, it was
distances.
about 80 to 120 milliseconds, if I remember rightly.
80
But
to 120.
I'm going back nearly 20 years. So if I'm out,
Yeah,
on
that's
that,
fine.
forgive me.
I'm sure the latency is reduced over time.
No. The only latency reduction. Wait, 1 second. Because he is kind of right. The only latency reduction we see is in the internal processing of the device itself. So you have three types of latency inducted into a signal. So one, we have the distance from A to B. So that's where I get my hello, I'm here, and I see a direct packet return based on my send. I then get the opposite from my data center back to the satellite, and then I have the processing points, which we measure in nanoseconds, by the way. Or clock cycles, if you want to be really, really pedantic.
I have a very in-depth reading on satellites I've been meaning to do. I know that there's sleight of hand just because of what I believe in.
You don't
and
know that.
that's the only way I'm going to explain it to you.
I'm not going to challenge you on that, Rick, because you're incredibly reasonable. I think you're wrong, but I'm going to respect your perspective because you're an incredibly reasonable interlocutor, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I
Well,
don't
thank you. I still
shit.
need to look into this. I have to rest on my other evidences and say that there has to be some sort of sleight of hand going on.
If you want in-depth GPS satellite, one second left.
You want to rest on your bias. That's fine. Yeah, just own it. It's a bias. It's irrational. It's illogical.
I absolutely
you have
am
no
owning it.
evidence.
I haven't
We have just
gone in
sat
depth with
here
satellites just yet.
with evidence, personal testimony, and evidence of how it works. But your bias still cannot be overcome by that. That's completely unreasonable.
Well,
He's got a suspicion.
I was hoping to find somebody who was curious enough to maybe look for the sleight of hand with me.
There is no sleight of hand.
For me,
I guess the question then is if you are, from what I'm hearing, you seem incredibly confident that there is sleight of hand. So what's your evidence that there is?
Right. So, in Riggs, my point of view is that I worked on the F-15 and I worked directly with our Iggy INS system as well as our GPS, all the antennas, all the bullshit. I even had to key it every day for it to pick up more satellites to be even more accurate and precise. I did not pick up on any sleight of hand magic tricks. Everything was straightforward, worked as advertised. When it broke, I would have to fix it in particular ways that did not involve sleight of hand or magic tricks. So my direct experience working on it, as well as my knowledge behind it, I cannot tell you personally that I found anything. So if you ever do come across evidence of this magic or sleight of hand, I'm very interested in what you find. But if it's just, you assume there is, I will accept that as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely assume there is. I have a collection of information I need to go through. But if you have anything as far as your specialty or the interfaces that you've worked with, I will take that too and add it to my collection because I am going to go through it.
I'll try to find my paperwork of what we learned.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any PDFs or anything, please send, or links.
I got you.
Bio, I've just thrown in the SEBA Geosatellite Geodesy paper from 2003. If you want a really, really fucking good primer on how GPS works, how the satellites work, what the methodologies use, how they communicate, all the way down to pretty fucking low-level maths, that is awesome. I understand about probably 50-60% of that if I'm lucky, and most of that's the words and not the maths. But it is a very, I won't say interesting read, that would probably be really generous, but it's an informative read.
Yeah, this I'm just like scanning it, and this seems like if you can understand all of this, you would be an absolute expert.
I understand. I mean, I don't understand all of it, but I will comb through it until I do. I mean, I have this other here. I'll post what I also have. Let's see here. Because this has been a problem that I hear about all the time, and I've heard some. Wait, what is this? I've heard some more convincing evidence than, hey, look, see, it says nigga in there. Careful.
That's not a racial epithet. One, because it would need another G at least, and preferably an ER at the end to be correct.
I don't know, man. It says 666 right there. I can't trust it now.
So
I should have renamed it.
So do you have anything yet, or is it just a collection that you think you're going to come across something?
No, I mean, no. I want to really understand this stuff because I know it's not just one application. There's many different applications, and the technology depends on the application. So when people say GPS, they're really summarizing many different systems that have specific ways of functioning. Let's see. Orbital mechanics for engineering students. Okay.
That seems like a very light read.
Yeah. No, I'm going to stick with GPS for now.
That's mechanics. That's without being insulting. That's as low as you can go to get an understanding of it.
Oh yeah, I was being very sarcastic. If that's the base, then fuck that.
Yes, like not being facetious.
Surely that only talks about dumb bodies, masses in orbit. It doesn't talk about functioning satellites, radio.
Does it talk about three-body equations in there?
Yeah. Need a background in calculus and calculus and analytical mechanics, but that's the basis.
Probably calculus and differential equations as well if you're doing three-body.
Yeah, differential equations would help. Just a background in it, though.
Riggs with GPS kind of setups. I think if you're really trying to reveal some type of sleight of hand, what would be interesting is if you yourself could build a receiver, and then do some type of programming for it. That way, you know what your device is interpreting, what it's capable of bringing in, and that information itself. That would be interesting as well. You would eliminate half of the communication, or not communication, but half of the system. You would eliminate completely because you have full control of your device.
GPS would be the worst environment to try and learn any of this stuff because it's complicated. You really need to simplify a single satellite stationary orbit, and then a single satellite in low Earth orbit. You don't want to jump to one where there can be 12 satellites above the horizon at any one time.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah, the moon's a big satellite. Start with
that. Fucking Roger. That's what's really going on up there.
Pinball.
Well, I mean, I'll do my due diligence. I think there's sleight of hand. You know, I can go in with my bias and try to poke holes in it. You know, but if I were doing it myself, I mean, we're talking about it would be a lot of dedication. I'm really just trying to get an understanding as much as I can at a novice level, you know, at least to start. And I think oh no, are you guys still here?
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of satellites, apparently the Space Hotel has been pushed to 2027 opening.
God damn it, my reservation got pushed again.
Space Hotel?
Yeah, it's apparently named Voyager class. They're saying that it's going to be able to hold about 400 people, but I guess they're going to begin construction soon, and they're hoping for a 2027 open.
They're saying it's in space?
That it will be, yeah, in orbit.
All right, so I got
What, does it connect all the way from like the ground?
No. It's a satellite.
All right, so that link I posted, do you think that would be a good one to learn from? I've got your PDF.
Probably, yeah. Department of Geography posting it from Penn State. Probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty in depth. I mean, kind of in depth. It's got a lot of chapters, but I think it covers a lot of the bases to help me understand where they come from before it gets too complicated.
Yeah, I'm just reading the titles of each chapter. And this seems pretty legit.
Yeah. So I'll start there, and then when I get bored of this one, I'll throw your PDF in the mix. Maybe I'll have something to talk about next time.
Yeah, I find GPS pretty simple, but it can be complicated once you get into like the meat and potatoes of it. But it's pretty.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty simple at face value.
What, drawing lines on a fucking map to cross each other is complicated? Okay. Longitude and latitude were minutes. That's all you need.
So what's with all the trolls in the chat? I mean, we're literally just having a discussion. I've already illuminated that I have a bias towards this topic. and I'm interested in getting information on it. Literally got a bunch of dickwads being like, "Oh, he's not gonna look at this," or they just troll. Like, come on, grow some nuts.
I'm sorry, but do you compare thee to a dickwad?
You need to distance yourself.
Why, yes, I do.
We're just saying you need to distance yourself from the average flurfer mentality of saying nuh and then doing fuck all to show so.
No, I don't think I need to do anything.
Just draw him a picture of a Christmas tree and say, "I work that out."
You don't need to do it. Well, then you've just opened up an excuse to not prove anything.
There you go.
Dang.
That's what they do.
Does that suck for me or does it suck for you? Because I don't fucking work for you.
That's a flat earthers theory. Make
I
it
don't
look
owe you
like
nothing,
it does
man.
something, but it doesn't.
Yo, Rig. I just want to like understand something. So you feel there's like sleight of hand or trickery going on when they tell us, you know, the Earth is flat, or I mean, the Earth is a sphere or something, right? Like, because I heard you trying to compare that to what magicians do. Like, they pull a trick on you, but they don't tell you how the trick is done, right? But I mean, when they, like, for example, when someone makes the claim that the Earth is a sphere, you know, so that would be the trick being pulled. They actually tell you how they do the trick, don't they? Like, they tell you how they've come to the conclusion that it's a sphere. They give you like the methodology. So I mean, like, why do you still feel there's a sleight of hand or something going on when they tell you how they came to that sort of conclusion?
They've also told a lot of lies too.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But when someone tells you, you know, the Earth is a sphere and this is why, I mean, is that still sleight of hand going on? Rig?
I guess it just depends if it's actually evidence, you know, which, which, you know, the globe, in my opinion, it falls within an unfalsifiable claim. So then you're left attacking all these other tangential things like satellites, you know.
Is that really true though? You know, when you know, because I know you
Yeah.
know that there are experiments you can do at home to prove what, you know, the shape and composition of the Earth is. Why is it, you know,
Proof comes down
an
to fucking
unfalsifiable
belief
claim?
too, man. Like, especially with the globe.
Okay, so if I gave you an experiment and you did it and it gave you a result saying that, you know, the Earth is a sphere, you still wouldn't believe it then. If
Well,
belief
is that
what
experiment
matters.
sufficient? Or should I just take your word for it?
No, I mean, the experiment, if you don't feel the experiment is sufficient, you can always do another experiment. But I'm
Like,
giving you
here's
more
an
than my
example,
word.
right?
I'm giving you my word, and I'm giving you an
Okay, your word.
experiment you can do at home.
Yeah, if I go into something, okay, I have a bias. When I go in to look into the GPS stuff, I'm going to be looking for holes, obviously. If you come to me and say, hey, if you do this, according to your bias, this is proof for you. It may not be proof for me.
Okay.
Like, you guys really like to talk about the Bob
I understand.
Nodell 15 degrees per hour, right? Like, that's very sufficient for you guys. To me, I say, well, where's the altitude? And then you're like, do you mean latitude? Like, no, altitude. You get this expected result of different altitudes. And apparently you don't.
Okay.
I haven't confirmed it myself, but there's other arguments.
You need
like
a high level of. Yeah, so you would require a high level of evidence to believe it, right?
Of course.
You would need a level of evidence that an ordinary dude like me could not provide to you. It sounds like if I give you an experiment you can do at home, it's not enough for you to believe it to be true, regardless of the outcome of the experiment. So it's not necessarily that. Hang on. It's not necessarily that
that's
the claim
the burden of the globe, man. That's not your burden.
Falsifiable, but it's that you want an extremely high level of evidence because you maybe feel the claim being made is also extreme. So if there's an extreme claim being made about the shape of the Earth, you want some crazy level of like high precision, you know.
I think that
go
my
to space yourself type of evidence, right?
Or the precision that I'm looking for is much less than the claim of the globe.
So what are you looking for then? If I give you an experiment you can
Well, I
do at
just gave
home,
you an
why wouldn't
example,
that?
right? 15 degrees per hour. Well, if you change, what if your elevation changes to about 5,000 feet? Do you still get 15 degrees per hour? I mean, you should. It doesn't change, right? Doesn't change the shape of the Earth, but if you get different results, what does that mean? It means that maybe your evidence
What
is
is this
fuck all,
15
right?
degrees per hour thing that you're talking about?
Well, like if the gyro measures, if it shows, oh fuck, what's the word?
Drift or what?
Yeah, drift, precession, and you get 15 degrees per hour on the ground, on the surface, and then it becomes predictable depending on your latitude. Okay, that's compelling, right? But then you change the altitude, or maybe you change the a couple other variables. Maybe you get different results. You know, what if it comes down to a certain type of bearing?
All right, that's fine. That's
there's all kinds
a
of
very, I mean, that's logical. But why do you expect a change in results if you change your altitude? Like
no.
if you climb to the
I
top
just
of a mountain.
expect it to not be consistent with the globe. Because
Okay, so you have this expectation.
Yeah, I have an expectation, and you know what's funny is that usually when I come to these expectations, like they end up being pretty valid when you get there.
Okay.
In my experience, so
what
I
about
could literally
when a
just point out
gyroscope
another. Sorry, go ahead.
What about when a gyroscope is in a plane? 30,000 feet in the air. That's fine, right?
Well,
that
do you
fits
find that a gyroscope holds its space, holds its position rigid in space? I mean, is that a property of a gyro?
I wouldn't say so. No, like you always need to recalibrate it, readjust it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
it's
say
looking for an
it holds
input,
its
right?
position rigid anywhere. Whether it's on the floor or in space. That's what I would.
It tries to hold its orientation in
tries.
space. Not that it does. It tries. That's the physics behind it.
Yeah.
And it has a reaction force when it gets disturbed, which we can use to make measurements.
Okay, so the idea that a gyroscope is rigid in space is more of a layman's understanding.
If there's no other external
who has
forces
that
applied,
idea,
it will
though?
hold its orientation in space, yes.
Gyroscope just keeps it in one spot.
Because I mean, when you boil down to it, Rick, it sounds like it's all about belief with you. It sounds like it doesn't matter what kind of experiment is given to you, you're just not going to believe it because you have this preconceived notion that you are being lied to, that there's trickery going on, that there's a sleight of hand.
For me, absolutely, especially with some topics.
Okay.
Yeah,
The thing about the
I have no problem
15
admitting
degree per
that
hour,
some
though,
of the things. I'm
That's
sorry,
okay.
who's this?
No, you finish. Sorry, I was interrupting.
Okay. Yeah, I come in here. I'm very open about it. Some of the things I believe are total bias. I have no problem with that. It doesn't mean I'm going to leave it there. Like I have no problem looking into something, or even being told I'm wrong. Like I post maybe 10 memes and then 2 of them are bullshit, right? But sometimes I just I like to have fun with it. I know they're bullshit. I still post them. But at the end of the day, there can only be one answer, right? You can't change what is. I mean, facts change all the time, but the truth does not. So I feel confident. I do. Regardless of all my errors or my biases, I really feel like there's sleight of hand, and if you haven't found it, if you're looking, you will find it. And I feel like the evidence is for the globe, which massive fucking claim, the whole globe idea and outer space, and like it's unreal, the claim out of a fucking actually out of a fucking storybook. I just think that it can't hold water. I really don't think it can hold water.
Well, Riggs, why don't you prove it wrong then?
I don't need to. It's not my claim.
Good luck with that.
The thing about the falsifiability part, right, is like for the example of that 15 degree per hour measurement, like it's fine to request then maybe let's change the altitude, but then that's a different experiment. When the falsifiability comes down to what would you expect on a flat Earth, what should you get in terms of rotation, versus what do we actually measure? And if you do that, then we can falsify the flat Earth from that experiment.
No. I'm not trying to claim what I would get on a flat Earth. If the positive claim lies in the globe and what it is using as evidence to prove itself, all you have to do is point that, perhaps it doesn't.
Yeah, but I mean, that experiment, I feel like you said earlier, right, that it's not, that none of these things are falsifiable. But if you place, say, a ring laser gyro on a non-rotating surface, then we shouldn't measure any rotation. But we do. So I feel like that in and of itself shows that the experiment is a falsifiable test of the globe.
Why shouldn't you? What if light travels through its own medium? I mean, you have to look at all the ways that you can construct the idea.
Sure.
You can't just stop there. Like a lot of people think that, the photon, it's it's got mass, but it doesn't have any weight, right? And it goes through like most things, but not some things, right? And it also carries heat. Like there's
right. We have to look in the whole
another
context
element there
of
that I don't think is explained even the mainstream model. So, like, there's a lot in contention that rests on old ideas when really the whole system kind of has to be shaken up, because you're like one idea isn't compatible with the other idea, which isn't compatible with the other idea, and this is mainstream consensus. It just doesn't make sense. Like the idea that relativity doesn't mix with quantum mechanics. I mean, this is well understood, but if it was really taken in heed, you would have to understand the shit's broken and you got to start over.
Yeah, there's an extent to which there's a huge chasm sort of between making those two theories agree with each other. But ultimately,
you shouldn't have to.
In their own domains, they're both valid. Being the cosmological scale for relativity and the microscopic scale for quantum. It's not like they're both wrong. It's just that in combination they don't totally describe all phenomena.
No. This is double speak, man. If you don't have something that works, then it's wrong.
We have something that works. It's just that the scope at which it works is limited for each of them. We don't know where the overlap is.
I mean, I would understand if you said, okay, well, this measuring stick works for measuring my Legos, but I'm going to need a car to figure out how far it is from here to New York. Okay, those are not synonymous, though. Those are little types of measurement. You're talking about whole different systems of understanding. Like space-time. Like, what the fuck is a space-time, bro? If you can imagine...
Is that an honest question or like a rhetorical one?
It's a fallacy theory put into understanding. That's about it.
If you just look at a cup of water, right? You literally have to believe that the space and time is warping around the mass of that water in the glass. But it's warping in such a way that you can't actually tell, and that it actually just has defined borders and operates on a completely different system of rules than what this whole space-time thing does. Except in the planetary scale, where everything makes sense because that's where your gravity equation, has to fill in the blank. But we don't exist in a planetary scale.
That's what I'm saying, right? In their domains, each theory is incredibly precise and applicable.
That's not
more
true.
So than,
You've
more
never
so
been
than
to
previous
space.
theories,
You
at
cannot
least.
make this application. You can't make that application.
Well, for example, general relativity predicts the location of Mercury's precession around the sun in its orbit more accurately than Newton's did, which was off by like a factor of half, I think. So there is a sense in which general relativity does supplant Newtonian mechanics at the astronomical scale. But the difference between Newtonian mechanics, like standard F equals ma, versus general relativity at the scale of, like you said, a cup of water, is basically negligible. So there's really no reason to use that kind of huge machinery in commonplace situations. For that reason,
you
like especially
understand-
so at the microscopic level, we don't use general relativity at that scale because the effects it would have are virtually negligible. Within their own domains, both quantum and general relativity have their merits. It's just that we don't know how to expand both of them to cover the range of everything, because quantum mechanics breaks down at macro scales because of decoherence, and general
you just
relativity
made my
reduces to
argument
Newton.
for me, man. I don't have to prove something that doesn't work. Or
We
prove something wrong.
wholeheartedly. I mean, it's totally fine. I'm fine with saying that they don't work for everything. They're not both universal theories, but in their own domains, they are both experimentally verified to hell and back.
I think it makes more sense that these systems have been reverse engineered for the benefit of saying we understand shit.
That's a fair assessment.
Oh, well, then everything you just said was gobbledygook. Because if it was
Well, no.
reverse engineered, then all you're providing is fuck all.
Well, we're providing a descriptive mechanism behind what we observe in reality. I mean, that's what virtually all of physics is. It's reverse engineering equations that describe the behavior of the world. I mean, there's a sense in which we could reduce all of, progress in physics and chemistry and such to just reverse engineering and then claim that it's not really helpful otherwise, but it is.
Yeah, but these things are not tangible. You're not going to space.
I'm not. You're right. So for me, you're right. I don't need to learn tensor calculus and apply apply Einstein's equations on the daily. But there are folks in an industry where that is the case. I'm not one of them, but there are people out there who do this, who study and advance the theory and then experimentally test it with atomic clocks and such that try to tease out, how does time dilation work? How does length contraction work? I'm not one of those scientists. So, I mean, there's an extent to which I'm at some level not qualified to talk about it. And I recognize that. But to what I do understand from what I've heard and read by people who do know more about this than me, it has its purpose.
I tell you what, though, I love Velcro. So if NASA had anything to do with that, I really appreciate it. Look, I really wish this stuff wasn't just a rat wheel, but it is. And I don't know if it's my time living the life that I've lived to recognize it, but it just is. If I have to go through all kinds of lengths to help you guys understand it, I guess I could go into that, but you guys are just you're falling for a rat wheel. And you can make the same claim about me, I guess. There's
right,
a lot
yeah,
of bullshit
I
in flat
appreciate
earth.
that you can have that opinion. I mean, I disagree with you, of course, but it's fine for us to disagree on that.
Like it wouldn't be so much of a rat wheel if it actually included things that would tangibly benefit your life, Like if you could grow enough trees and it would get you to space, at least you learned how to grow trees. But they literally have these specialists sitting in fucking cubicles thinking that they're hot shit, doing stuff for the benefit of something that'll never happen, all for the sake of societal control.
I agree with that to an extent, although there are some cases, like for example, in the establishment of GPS, right? They use atomic clocks to synchronize the satellites. And if we hadn't, been
I've
able
heard
to
about
correct for that with
this
relativity,
argument.
then GPS might be off. So
It has
that's
to do
one.
with
The
the
other one
speed of
is
light.
quantum mechanics is giving people, quantum dot television, which may or may not be super helpful, but at least it's a phenomena that the layperson can appreciate. And I mean, even then, like folks in IT, the fact that NIST is pumping out quantum certified random bits is, I guess, useful for those in the crypto sphere, those who care a lot about certifiable randomness. So, I mean, it's definitely very niche, the extent to which these fringe theories, these very modern theories, apply in general. And that's, I think, part of the reason why they're studied so extensively, right, is because there's this sort of mad dash to apply them in as many practical cases as we can. I anticipate and I'm optimistic about in the future there being more applications for things like quantum mechanics in typical realm. I mean, it's already being annoying for CS folks because it's showing that there's a limit to how small we can make transistors, which is a sad fact. It's not really helping us, it's actually hurting us, but nevertheless, it's still having practical implications.
What's the technology that comes after transistors? Is it biological?
After transistors?
Yeah, because you can't use them forever. There's the next thing, right?
Well, folks are.
It's going to get too small.
Yeah. So this is actually a part of that I'm actually doing research in. So there's Moore's law, and the funniest trope in a lot of CS research is at the beginning of every paper they'll say Moore's law is ending and has been ending for decades. But essentially, yeah, there's a limit to how small we can make transistors. So what systems are doing now is, rather than just cramming many of them into like a general purpose CPU as we can, we are sort of diversifying chips on this. We're building what's called a system on a chip. So if you have like an iPhone with, it won't just have like 8 cores. It might have 4 big cores, 4 small cores. Like there will also be like a dedicated AES cryptographic algorithm unit. There will be like a tensor processor maybe. There will be an image processing unit. A lot of very specialized heterogeneous chips that sort of all communicate to each other. So that's one way of sort of getting around this, is taking algorithms we use very frequently, like if people are taking pictures on their phone, we're going to want that. If people are encrypting their hard drive contents, we're going to want that. Building chips that are really good at doing that much faster than a CPU can, and then just sort of having them be discrete units to the side. In the memory space, people are trying to do 3D stacked memory. So rather than just a flat chip with a bunch of transistors in one dimension, we can kind of like stack multiple layers and try to get much denser, like just build out in all 3 dimensions to get more capacity for things like SSDs.
Do you know about quantum computing?
I do know.
Just a quick thing.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Aren't they doing that for DDR5? They're going to stack it?
They might be. I don't know about I don't know about the performance. I feel like DDR5 is relating to the clock speed of the memory more so than the capacity. So I don't know how much those are related.
It's the fact that they're going to break 5 gigahertz on RAM out the box.
That's really impressive. I've seen DDR5 is like what, 5200 megahertz or something.
Yeah, yeah, 5200 and up. I mean, you can get DDR4 to 5200.
That's
but
faster
it gets
than the turbo clock on most CPUs.
But wait,
it gets really hot.
Getting those speeds by using the layered tech?
Yeah, I
don't know.
To multiply it?
They might
Instead
be.
of doing
That might be how
stack
they're.
of 2, you're doing a stack of 4.
My guess is what they're doing is they're using faster tech, which is inherently got a lower capacity to get to the clock speed, and then they're layering to get the original capacity back.
Okay. Well, that sounds like
guess, but I haven't.
Sounds
checked.
like a power hog. Like in the new NVIDIA video cards, they were using a GDDR5X, and it's
6X.
Oh, they're using 6X. Yeah, it's been a massive fucking disaster for power.
Yeah, funny because they're getting the same, or nearly the same out of AMD with just DDR6 as they are out of the 3080s for NVIDIA. Stupid.
Like, what would you do with memory that fast? I mean, I guess you can. You can't really even. I guess if you have multiple cores, you can buffer as many requests as you want, and then it'll respond to them faster.
Well, no, it all has to do with It has to do with ray tracing. It helps with ray tracing at high resolutions.
Right, I get that for the GDDR5. I'm thinking about for like general purpose DRAM at a
The
clock
main-
rate
the
faster
main-
than the
the main
CPU. I'm guessing
advantage
it has a
you get
benefit when you've got more than one
is
core.
you get more memory density per chip. That means you need fewer chips. That means it's lower powered. So rather than having a
takes-
standard of 1.2 volts for DDR4, you're on, I think, 1.1 volt for DDR5 standard under the JEDEC standard.
Yeah, and the CPU won't be working so hard to try and get it from the DRAM when it can get it from the VRAM. So it's direct through the PCI bus, and then it's just CPU, GPU doing all the work, whereas the memory can just do all the background shit.
That's really convenient.
Because that's what the SAM thing is with the Ryzen and Radeon is to try and alleviate using up RAM, which sucks up most of the power.
Right.
Well,
It's also
but-
the source of most of the latency.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well is it's the communication speeds. So it's not so much the RAM in itself, it's then the chipset that's enabled to support the RAM, and then the memory bandwidth that you have between the memory itself and that chipset on the motherboard.
Well, that's why we fucked off the North Bridge,
DDR3
dude.
to DDR4 to DDR5.
No more North
Fucking right,
Bridge.
mate.
Yeah, fuck it. Put it on the chip. Done. SoC. There you go.
I feel like that's generally the direction a lot of these systems are taking, is building a system on chip, putting things as close together as they can.
AMD just announced their fucking 96 core chip.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Do you know who I think is going to be the ultimate winner of the chip battle in the end? And
Us.
it's not going to be AMD. It's not going